Before screens turned into mirrors reflecting market numbers, and before indices became a daily language in people's lives, there was someone who observed societies the way a doctor reads a patient's pulse, not searching for a single number, but for the hidden meaning behind it. Ibn Khaldun believed that economics was not an equation, but a long story written by trust, shaped by incentives, and constantly rewritten by power. Every time a state rises, the scene begins simply: a cohesive group united by a shared purpose, working with high energy, enduring hardship because they see in the future a promise worth sacrificing for. At that moment, social cohesion is strong, cooperation is natural, and productivity flows directly from harmony. People do not need strict surveillance or complex laws because inner bonds are stronger than any external force. Over time, wealth accumulates. Necessity turns into comfort, comfort into habit, and habit into expectation. Stability is no longer seen as a temporary achievement, but as a permanent right. Elites begin to drift away from the roots of the strength that once built success. Offices multiply faster than workshops, privileges grow faster than responsibilities, and positions become inherited rather than earned through competence. At this stage, collapse does not happen suddenly. The system slowly loses its flexibility. It becomes less able to adapt, more afraid of change, and more dependent on past glory than present effort. Ibn Khaldun observed that this transformation does not arise from sudden moral decay, but from shifting incentives. When profit is guaranteed, the desire to take risks fades. When power is inherited, creativity weakens. When the state becomes a source of wealth rather than a framework for production, people shift from being producers to consumers of authority. Taxes begin to rise, not out of cruelty, but to sustain an inflated lifestyle, expanding administration, and costly institutions. At first, revenues hold up thanks to past momentum, but gradually, productivity slows. People search for ways to evade, reduce, or quietly withdraw from full participation. Investment declines, innovation shrinks, and economic activity becomes short-term and survival-focused rather than long-term and constructive. The economy becomes like a tree whose leaves are still green but whose roots are weakening. Water no longer reaches it efficiently, yet the danger goes unnoticed because appearances remain reassuring. Ibn Khaldun considered the most dangerous stage of decline to be the one that looks completely normal. Celebrations continue, mega-projects persist, optimistic speeches fill the air, yet beneath the surface, trust erodes, cohesion weakens, and cooperation turns into temporary transactions instead of lasting commitments. At this point, societies no longer need external enemies to fall. Continuing along the same path is enough. If we look at today's world through Ibn Khaldun's lens, we do not see something entirely new. We see a more complex version of the same cycle. Technology is faster, markets are broader, and institutions are larger, but the deep logic remains unchanged. Economies still rest on trust. They still collapse when that trust erodes. Social cohesion now appears in new forms: belief in institutions, confidence in currencies, respect for rules, and willingness to cooperate within vast systems where individuals barely know each other. When these elements are strong, planning is possible, investment makes sense, and risk becomes calculated. People believe their efforts will return real value. When these elements weaken, behavior becomes defensive and short-term. Individuals seek quick gains and avoid long commitments. The goal shifts from strengthening the system to extracting as much as possible before it collapses. In modern booms, this shift is visible. Asset prices rise faster than wages. Finance expands faster than the real economy. Success becomes tied to networks and positioning rather than value creation. This is the contemporary version of elites drifting away from productive foundations. As modern states expand, so do their social, administrative, and political obligations. Promises exceed resources. Programs outgrow sustainable funding. At first, the gap is filled with debt, monetary expansion, and postponed costs. The system appears stable, indeed prosperous, but beneath the surface, tomorrow's productivity is being consumed to finance today's comfort. Debt, in this context, is not merely a financial tool. It is a signal of imbalance between effort and reward. As this imbalance grows, questions emerge. Who pays? Who benefits? Who bears the risks? Who is protected? With these questions, legitimacy begins to erode. People judge systems not only by their power, but by their perceived fairness and practical value. Ibn Khaldun understood that coercion can enforce obedience for a time, but it cannot create creativity, enthusiasm, or genuine risk-taking. When people no longer feel that the system works for them, cooperation declines, even if outward compliance remains. The economy becomes slower, heavier, and less dynamic, not because resources are lacking, but because collective motivation is. At such moments, social restructuring begins. Old structures weaken, new, more disciplined and cohesive groups emerge. A new cycle starts, not because history enjoys repetition, but because human incentives reproduce the same patterns again and again. What Ibn Khaldun offers the individual is not a formula for wealth, but a lens for understanding, a way to see beyond media noise and daily numbers, to realize that stability is never permanent, that peaks are never guarantees, and that social cohesion is more valuable than any financial asset. When you understand this, you stop being dazzled by temporary booms and paralyzed by sudden crashes. You learn to move through cycles with calm and awareness. You recognize that what shifts beneath the surface is not just markets, but human psychology, its consistency and volatility, ambition and fear. Those who grasp this early do not escape history, but they stop being its silent victims. If you found this perspective valuable and want more deep analyses like this, don't forget to subscribe, follow, and support the channel so you never miss what lies beneath the headlines.